So how do I figure out what is my minimally viable product? And the approach is pretty much the same as a lot of experimentation. I have an idea of what it is. I test it, I analyze it. Validation means I prove that actually my theory works. Verification means that I could actually do it more than once, and that's the way I scale. So here are the steps that you go through. And the important thing is that you might find out it doesn't work, or you learn something that makes you change your mind. And so you take a new path, and that's called pivoting. In terms of MVP, some of the issues are why you want it is to get to cash faster. You can grade on customers. And that's, you can go after something and it can just not work. The first Windows that came out worked so badly, they alienated so many customers they didn't come back. The Lean Sigma approach, this idea of pivoting, it works better for software than it does on physical products, because software, well, if I want a new iteration, what do? I just write new code. I just push electrons around. But if you have a physical product, every one of those iterations, I have to buy goods and stuff like that. I have to manufacture it. And so that costs money. But what you do is you do keep on pivoting until you run out. But the thing is, you need to be smart about it. In terms of MVP, it's about strong products. It's about simple, clean, and minimal. It has to align to what your long-term goal is. Great products have depth, and that's that you have to be careful to make sure that your customer, that you have enough depth in your product so your customer will still like it. You have to be careful about what experiments you try to do, and that's that your waste can actually get pretty high. And at its core, though, to be good at MVP, it's about flexibility and validating what you go ahead and do. In a nutshell, your program is about cash. In startups, it's what's keeping you alive. So don't waste it in develop. You have to be able to balance cash, your product development, your market understanding, and you want to put together a product that has minimal features so people can test it and see what it is they're going to fall in love with. So now we move on to the next part of our lecture, and that's about positioning. And so we're going to talk about what is positioning, how do we map it, and how does it align to the opportunity. Positioning is the act of framing in your customer's mind what they should think about when they think about your product, that it's distinct in its value. When you think of cool gadgets, what do you think of? Most people think about Apple products. And why? Because that's the way they position their product. A lot is dependent on how you want to compete with your product. Is it about technology, the car? Is it about your individuals and knowing the customer? That's the driver. Or is it the market itself, which is the race? And so you could take one of two approaches. You could take a top-down approach, and that's what you see whether or not the values of your product actually fit into the market. And bottoms up, it's what do customers like in this market, and then you pivot into that position. So most startups are better off going bottoms up to basically have a pull from the market of things that people want to do. Does push ever work? Yes, it does. And what it works for is for products that everybody needs, like medicines or food or something like that. You want to differentiate your product, and these are the factors how you differentiate. But what it still comes down to is still the value proposition: economics, utility, and emotion. In terms of a positioning statement, this is what you say to customers who are basically, who is it you're going to target? Our product offers. State what your product offers relative to, you want to compare it to their alternatives, which is competition. And so an example of a positioning statement is to customers who like to sell their wares. Craigslist allows local selling without the hassle of shipping and packaging that auction websites offer. That's what a position is. I've established who I am. In terms of formulating a strategy around for your positioning, what offers the most value? Which are taken and which aren't open? How do we create opportunity through differentiation? And which of these positions lie best to my company? So I'm interested in what factors drive it. Now, the thing is, attributes tell you what customers prefer, but not necessarily what they're going to choose. And so to get from an attribute to a preference, it's can I align them to my customer, to my value proposition. And to get the preference to choice, that's a probability function. What are the odds that if they like my product that they'll actually go ahead and buy? And this is called the hierarchy effects, and the reason why is one step is dependent on another. Here are some positioning strategies. Do I want to position according to competition? How do I compare myself to someone else? Is about my product user, and that has to do with persona, that I'm a sophisticated product, so I'm going to position myself according to the most interesting man, and so on and so forth. In terms of interpreting data, I can use anecdotal data, and that's interviews, focus groups, pick a market, and go ahead and test it. Or I can collect data based on hard data, which is surveys and things like that, and do analysis and mapping. And so based on that data, I can figure out where I should position. I could either position according to my product features or my product values, or I could position myself according to my customer values. And so this kind of mapping, there are three different types. There's perceptual maps, which is about product space, preference maps, which are about preference space, or the two of them together. And so here's some background on perceptual preference and joint space maps. You could read those on your own. But maps give me a way to show position, and I can use multiple values in it. And there are a bunch of different techniques I can use to be able to judge those maps, whether it's qualitative or I use quantitative techniques. A lot of you probably remember perceptual maps. This is one way of, and I'm doing it according to product features. And the product features I'm interested in is my product cool? And how expensive is it? The thing is, you look at this, and should Dell be concerned? Yeah, they probably should, because they're stuck in the middle. They're not unique. And that's the beginning of the end. Factor analysis. What factor analysis is that I can take many different variables, product attributes, and then I have my customers go ahead and rate them. And then from that, I can figure out what's most important. So in terms of research, I think this is probably a good place to take a break. And the last part will be the last section of this lecture.